Normie, if we can move forward to 1980, and obviously first Origin game, can you give us some insight into the lead up to the first Origin, how you found out, just some memories around that first week and that first game?
Well, I'll just go back a step prior to that, to the two state games before, and to give you an idea how things started to change. Back then, we got an allowance off the QRL, and you know, these are things that I'm trying to get in my memory straight, but you know, it could be a little bit of miscalculation in cost and all those sort of things. But I think at the time, were $250 a win and $250 a loss and $500 a win. So we never got to the 500 a loss at the time, but they used to give us an allowance. Okay, from work, and I think it off the top of the head it was about $100, I think, a day.
Okay,
but in that you had to buy your own tea.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
And
you know, after each game or whatever game, you know, we would get a bathtub in somebody's room and put a couple of cartons of beer in there, and that was our celebrations or whatever after the game, you know what I mean? So step up to the Origin, that happened, and all of a sudden we're staying in the 5-class hotels, and I think that was correct, 5-star, or we might have been still at the Melbourne Hotel. I can't remember off the top of the head, but, you know, it was $1,500 a game, win, lose or draw.
Jeez.
You know what I mean? That's a big step up.
Big jump.
That's a lot of money to blokes back in our day, you know, 40 years ago. And then the fees, they feed 3 times a day. It was terrific, you know what I mean? So it certainly changed the what's the name from state football, where Ron McAuliffe recognised the same problems that we were recognising. We're getting beaten, and nobody did give a shit about it, really. You know, but because they just wanted the competition to go along the way it was. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden, Ron McAuliffe, in his wisdom, changed and said, "I'm sick and tired of getting beaten. Let's make ourselves professionals," and started paying the money. And if you look at the side that played in the first state of origin, I think there was only 4 players that were different. There wasn't that many player changes in the actual side that got beaten in the first state game.
State game of that year.
Right. You know, Rod Reddy, Arthur Beeton, who I think they pulled out of reserve grade, Johnny Lane, and Greg Oliphant. I think that were the only 4 players off the top of my head. There could have been another one, but the nucleus of the side already played in the state games.
Yeah, gotcha.
So what they've done, I believe, is just brought a belief into the side. You know,
and did you feel the belief? Did you feel the belief when you turned up that week, seeing Arthur, Rod Reddy, and those guys on your side for a change, and not getting belted by them?
Well, not really first up. It happened when the question was asked, what moves are we going to be putting on against New South Wales? And Rod Reddy said at the time, "What moves have you been doing?" He said, "Well, if you do it right and correct, it doesn't matter who you play against. That's all you got to do." So we put the same moves on that we did against New South Wales in the state game. So he's just brought the belief that if you do everything correct, you'll win the game.
Yeah. It's simple, isn't it?
There's a lot of other things.
Sure.
Just believe that if you do it right, you're going to win.
Yeah. So now looking at the game, I mean, you obviously never made it on the field. Do you have any if only moments that you maybe wish you could have taken the field that night, or you're quite comfortable with how it unfolded?
Well, it was late. I think Rowan Hancock went down injured with about 10 minutes to go. And I'm thinking to myself, it's cold, I'm stiff, all this sort of shit. I've already got the $1,500. The beer is cold inside, and I'll get a hot shower. You know what I mean? I'm saying to myself, get up, Rowan. You know what I mean? Get up. He's actually got up. I've got you beauty. I'm in the dressing shed when the boys come in, and they're all hot and sweaty, and I'm just relaxed. I got the $1,500 in my pocket.
That's good.
Yeah, so life is good, but now I regret not getting on the field. You know what I mean? And at the time, you say it, and you got to think about it. Football was getting more professional, and you realise, coming off the bench with the way you were back then, because you never done any. You never, a stretch would be flexing your fingers or something like that. You know what I mean? And getting on there, you're going to cause yourself more damage in those type of incidents than anything else. But so be it. That's the way it happened, and I do have a regret about that.
Okay. So, mate, a great win. Can you maybe enlighten us post-game about, and we've spoken about this, but you tell our listeners about Jack Gibson's shoes.
Jack Gibson's shoes, I think. Yeah, well,
after the game.
Yeah, it wasn't after that game. I think it was after a earlier game, a state game. I'm not sure now what game it was, but certainly Arthur Beetson was around at the time, and I'm glad he was. At the time, old Jack had his, like when you're having a few drinks around people, you start to get a bit close. You wouldn't survive on the pandemic days now, but back then you'd be, talking straight into his eyes, you know what I mean, like that. But I didn't realise Jack liked shoes at the time, and he had his crocodile shoes on, and I'm standing all over him, and he virtually said to me, lucky you're a friend of Arthur's, because, I can't remember the right word, but lucky you're a friend of Arthur's, or you'd be on the ground now, you know what I mean? So, well, standing all over his crocodile shoes, yes. I think Arthur's got that in his, he's written up that in the book. And I don't know if his record of it is 100% correct. It's probably better than mine anyhow.
Yeah. So, mate, moving on, I mean, obviously from then you played three full Origin games for 3 wins, 81-82. So you could see, as you rightly said, the momentum and the pendulum was starting to swing a lot more towards Queensland sides post that first game.
No, well, David, that's, back to what I said. They had a belief in winning. And it did come up. And the arrogance of New South Wales, if you want to call it for that, just think we shouldn't have been in the competition. You know what I mean? They didn't care about us. Any games that we played in New South Wales, nobody in New South Wales Rugby League, other than junior clubs like South Sydney Juniors, would entertain you. They would look after you.
Yeah.
I mean, the junior club. The NRL or whatever you want to call them back then, they didn't give a stuff about you. You know what I mean? And really now, I think it took about 5 or 6 years for New South Wales to realise what was happening. They got ambushed by their own, by who they thought they were their own players. But if you look back on sides that were playing around there, the majority of people still come out of the Brisbane competition.
Yeah, good point.
Or Queensland competition. There were country boys there too, you know what I mean? I'm just not saying Brisbane competition. So, it's not just the fact of being beaten, it's the way they looked at you, the way you treated. Yeah. Second-class citizen or something back then, you know what I mean? Yeah. In the sense that your competition wasn't as good. And it probably wasn't to the sense when the AMCO Cup and those competitions were around. We were competitive for a while, but the fitness and the strength of New South Wales was totally too good for the clubs. But when they amalgamated the clubs into a Brisbane side, the players are certainly Brisbane standard, but when they got together, they were quite capable of beating the New South Wales club sides.
Good point. Hey, Norm, can we maybe just move forward to your year at West in 84? I mean, probably from my recollection at that stage, West were sort of on a decline. And in '84, obviously, where was your mind at before you got the knock on the door to come to South?
Well, I got the knock on the door from West and said, "Listen, we don't require you next year." And
Really?
I said, "Oh, let's, you know, it's." It was just I was 29-year-old or 30, I can't remember rightly. Been at the club at that time for 12 or 13 years. You know, rightly, it's the club pays you the money, and if they don't want you, they don't want you. And that's fair enough. They let me know that, and at the time, then retirement was in my mind.
Yeah.
But I thought, well, hang on. The other knock come from the other door, and I went over to South and talked to Wayne Bennett, and well, that's history now. You know what I mean? Again,
how did that unfold, Norm? So the conversation with Wayne, did he reach out to you? Did he get wind of you that West had let you go, or was that before you found out West didn't want you?
No, that's afterwards, I believe. I can't recollect how it fell into the holes, but I just had a meeting with Wayne at the time, and I don't know where he got the information from. It was pretty straightforward, and we just took it from there. One of the things I did say to Wayne, and you know, he asked, "Why do you want to play with South?" And I just said, I said to him straight up, you know, "I think I can win you a grand final." You know, those are the words, and it come true. Thank Christ for that.
Thank Christ for that. Because obviously at the end of '84, I mean, South were flogged 42-8. So there was, starting back in '85, and I was there with you at that time, there was a lot of second guessing about how we're going to go in '85 after Wynnum had flogged us. But then you came in, Chrissy Phelan came in, Johnny Elias came up, and also Wayne Cullen came in. And there's suddenly a lot of strength and belief that we could do it. And through no understatement of your leadership, I think in '85, and you use that word belief, I think that's what you put into these boys was the belief word.
Well, the hard thing about it, I said earlier, is that you can certainly have great players across the board, but you've got to have the right great players. You know what I mean? And I think South did have a lot of good players in '84. They just didn't have the right players, you know what I mean, like the right toughness of play. They talk about Chrissy Phelan, you know, Johnny Elias brought other things to the club. Wayne Cullen brought things to the club, and myself, you know what I mean. There wasn't great difference to the side that played in '84. It's just that they played against a great side too.
Yeah, true.
The side they played against was a very good side, you know what I mean. And they didn't probably have. You had young players in your side that eventually, you know, 2 years later are playing for Australia. You know what I mean? They lacked probably leadership or that toughness that we were talking about earlier. That week in, week out toughness of players. You know that fronted up every day, every game, 80 minutes a game. And I think they might have been lacking that just in the youth side in the '84 to '85.
Yeah, good point.
In '85, Norm, how hard was it to come up against West for that first time? You've been at West for so long, now a Magpie. That first game that you played against the Panthers, was it everything that you expected? Did they throw everything at you?
No, not really. No, not really. It, you know, being the age I was at the time, you know, like if you thought, you know, I learned smartness rather than toughness, I used to hide on the blind side. You know? Look a bit tough and send the other forward, you know, get over there and do this, you know, make a few tackles there while I'm having a bludge. But you know, that was the advantages of being captain, I suppose. You know, like being smart enough to get away from the heavy work. But you know, it's. As I said, '84 with South was a great, you know, they were a good side, very good side, name-wise. But at the time, they just weren't ready to win a grand final.
Yeah.
You know, with the players. And I think Bobby Linder went to Wynnum from '84 '85, and he got a few injuries on the way. But with Wynnum on that. The next year they fronted up again, but that side was virtually the same side that won the competition in '84. South weren't. You know what I mean? And players like, as I said, Johnny Elias brought different things to the club. Chris Phelan, a lot of people talk about legends of the game. Have they ever analysed what Chris Phelan has done in his career? I think if you look at it just off the top of my head in senior competition, and he played in a grand final in '81 with South, winning grand final, went to Parramatta, and he was playing lock-up here. And went to Parramatta, and they won 3 grand finals down there in a row, and he was playing front row.
Yeah, true.
A little bit different. And then he's come back a year in '85 and won another grand final. So you tend to think sometimes you worry about, what sort of criteria you need to be a legend of the game.
Yeah. Well, just for the record, Norm, with you making that 70 side, Chris Phelan actually made the team of the 80s. So he did get some notoriety in the end, like he made that 80s side. So that was from the listeners again who'd called in to 4BC. So he was well looked after, well looked upon by the fans out there. Like you said.
No, he should be.
Yeah, definitely.
He was a very, very good player in the sense of straight up and down. I'm not saying we wondered at the time in '81 when Mickey Reardon scored a try for South in the corner, and we couldn't believe that Chris Phelan passed the ball. He was just straight up and down. Take it forward. That's but you need those type of players in your side, and that's in '85. That's all we needed, and I think, and probably advancing a little bit down the track, is that in the early parts of the season, Wayne Bennett said we got beaten 42 or whatever it was in '84 by Wynnum. All I want to do is, if we front Wynnum in the first game, is if we get beaten, I don't want it beaten anymore, but we want to be beaten less than those scores. And the main aim wasn't to beat Wynnum first up, because Wayne probably realised we couldn't do it at that time. But if you look through the records of that year, the first game we got beaten, I think the second game we got beaten, and the third game we beat them. And then we fronted them in the grand final and won it. So the method of Wayne was thinking at the time certainly worked. Because it's no use winning, beating Wynnum Manly 3 times during the year and then get beaten at the end when it counts.
Yeah.
Normie, just speaking of coaches, and you've been coached by some legends, who would you rate as your best coach? Is there anyone that really resonates that you really felt connected with?
Well, you talk about Ron Raper. He certainly developed my attitude to football, in the sense, not so much the skills, but he developed my determination and all those sort of things just through training in the professional and being thorough. When he first come to West, we were back playing the ball, learning to play the ball, because mistakes cost you games. And if you can't play the ball properly, what's the use of doing all the rest right? Catching the ball. We went through these sort of things, just the small skills that junior football, and I mean junior football under 6 do. How to play the ball properly, how to catch the ball, how to tackle properly. All those sort of things he brought back into the training field. With certainly training methods that we didn't like, running Mount Cootha or running the steps around Red Hill. Those sort of things like that. But and he brought in penalties if you didn't perform. And
Discipline.
And he certainly brought professionalism in the sense to the game, and that made you realise what's required to stay at the top or get to the top.
Yeah. When we spoke to Alan Curry recently, we asked Alan who he enjoyed most playing against, and he named you and Ian Tiny. I mean, is there certain opponents that you really relished the challenge?
Well, I always wanted to get over the top of my opposition player. So you target, whatever reason, you target your opposition player, the lock or whatever, you know what I mean? So, who I like playing against, Des Morris.
Yeah, okay.
You know, stopping Des Morris, because he was a great ball player, Des Morris. He's very good with his fullbacks down the blind side. So you always try to get the Des before he could unload the ball. You know what I mean? Like, and if you've done that, you felt good in yourself that you're doing your job. There's, you know, like Wally Lewis, you know, getting over the top of Wally, very hard to do. But before I scored the try in that
85.
grand final, I mean, I think I accidentally pushed him off, but really, it was a good palm, I thought, at the time.
It was.
But,
it was.
You know, it was great to look back and see Wally on the ground. You know what I mean? So it doesn't happen that many times.
Yeah, good.
But, you know, those sort of things you're quite happy about and enjoy doing. Playing with some great players. Jeff Richardson, he was probably magic with the ball. What he could do and create with the ball. He was, you know, you can't be too bad if you represent Australia in rugby union and rugby league. You know what I mean? So you've got to have something going for you. And he was good to watch, and he was unbelievable with the ball.
Yeah. Hey, Normie, can we just get close to finishing off with a couple of things? Can we maybe lighten it up? Can we, and there's a lot of people that always ask, Normie, but can you talk to us about Jeffrey?
Jeffrey. Yeah. No, you know,
like, I mean, honestly, I mean, these are the iconic things about the burial, the Jeffreys, the Happy Jacks, those types of guys made the comp the way. And Jeffrey absolutely idolised you. But what's the background with that? Where did that all start from?
I can't honestly tell you where it started from, but Jeffrey, you know, Normie Carr.
Yeah.
You know, like, and then, but he not only like, how do you say, he would follow the game anywhere. You know, when the clubs West started, or the competition started playing in the bush and against the bush, he would be on the bus. He would follow there. If he couldn't get the bus, he would catch the train there. You know, and I'm talking about Bundaberg, and all of a sudden Jeffrey would be there. You know, you need those type of followers.
Definitely.
You know, you need the characters. You don't only just need the characters in on the field. You certainly need them in the crowd. You need those people who enjoy the game, and he certainly enjoyed it. I don't know honestly why I was picked out at the time by Jeffrey, but he certainly knew all my family, knew everything about it, had posters, these sort of things. But if you'd done it now, you'd be called stalking. You know what I mean? Like those sort of things. But Jeffrey, he was very good. He appreciated what he was doing, and he was a great supporter of the club, or both clubs.
Just a fun fact there, Norm. He's actually still the mascot for West in the BRL competition. They made the grand final last year, and he led them out. He was in a Panthers suit. He was dressed up as a Panther, and he ran out, and then he took the head off of the mascot, and he was yelling out Panthers up and down the sideline. So he's still around, and he's still a West tragic.
Yeah, no, that's good. And as I said, then the BRL needs more, you know, more of those people. You know what I mean? And
absolutely.
Jeffrey at the time, you know, I mean, like, was not only loyal to the club, he helped the club. He would be helping the people in the canteens. He would be doing these other things. You know what I mean? Like selling raffle tickets and, you know, those sort of things. It just wasn't a fan going around the club enjoying the football. He enjoyed the social life of the clubs, and that's probably what these clubs at this time. There's no social life in the football, and that's what clubs relied on. You know, at West at its height, and this new club back then in '75, and they used to get 1,500 people to a concert or whatever they had there, and that's on top of the game day. You know, I mean, there's other people there. It was just fantastic people who would go to West from Wynnum or East or these sort of places that, or after a game that you had at West and you played Valleys. the players would stay there and they would have a feed there and they would have a drink and they would socialise with each other, the different clubs. I don't think that happens now, what I mean? So the social side of football was a big benefit to the community and the clubs.
Yeah.
Normie, just on your thoughts about the game today, I mean, what are your feelings about the game right now? Watching it.
Well, they get paid. No, I've got to say they get paid too much. And no, they probably get paid what they should get paid. But I don't think the Australian, Australian society can afford all these clubs that are professional. So it makes that cost to players getting $1 million seem absurd, because it does, in the sense that the money that footballers have got to spend, or the clubs have got to spend now, is just ridiculous. I think, and it's shown that it's unaffordable.
Yeah.
But it's hard to say. You don't begrudge the players of getting anything these days. You know what I mean? Okay, they're putting their body on the line. The sports medicine is a lot better for them now. If they turn 65 like I am and got bad knees and bad backs and bad necks, you say, shit, I need more money. But back then you're just happy to play the game. Like, I think my first sign-on fee was $650.
Jeez.
And I won't tell you what my top money was, but it took me about 5 years to get it out of West. And it's not their fault either. I just, that's the way it was at the time. And if you go back over the periods of West from the 70s to the 90s, they were in a few grand finals.
True.
Yeah.
Very true.
Very strong in the competition. So they might have had the dips sometimes in the 80s, but very strong in the 90s, early 90s, and then all of a sudden they fell away because financially it cost a lot of money to win a grand final.
Yeah, very true.
Regardless of like Sydney to Brisbane, you've still got to play the players, and if they're only on winning bonuses if they win all the time, you've still got to pay the money.
Good points, Normie. Hey, Simo, any final thoughts, mate?
If there's just Norm, just one question I've got, mate. If there's one memory of the old BRL competition that you have, a good memory, what is it?
Well, it's hard to say. Like, one memory I do have, and it's probably not a good memory for the person, but we're playing a game, and I got penalised by a referee, and like, I got up saying, look, you're nothing but an idiot, like, giving the penalty, and the referee said, who are you talking to? And Rod Bradshaw turned around and said, well, you're the only one that answered. That was that, but as I said, in the BRL, the competition was good. You respected the players.
Yeah.
Okay, we're all in the same boat. There was no $1 million players or anybody that wasn't working and just live off the money they're getting through football. Everybody was going through the same sort of things. You know what I mean? So across the board, the playing platform was even. And you respected your players. As I said, you had the socialising between the clubs was great. If you met somebody at a dinner or something like that, you would have a conversation with them. You wouldn't turn your back on them or do anything like that. You know what I mean? So the football at the time was a very good social community sort of hub in the BRL. That was great about it. We still now, after 40 years, still talk to players that we played against now. I played against them. So that's one big memory I got out of that. You met a lot of friends. Yeah. Sometimes you just don't, keep up with them, but that was the whole thing about it. The players are loyal in your club. Okay, there wasn't too many players that went went away. They either retired or died, or so left, but they never left the club. You know what I mean? So the club was the foundation of that community, that area.
Well said, mate.
Yeah. Normie, just wanted to reach out, mate. Thank you so much for today. I mean, the richness of some of the things you spoke about, the iconic status you had with a lot of BRL supporters in the 70s and 80s, mate. We just want to thank you so much for your time today on When They Were Kings. Stay in good health to you and your family, and look forward to catching up with you soon.
Thanks very much, boys. And I'd like to say one thing. Maybe the things I said are my opinion and probably not the truth.
Thanks again, Normie.
Thanks,
All right, boys.
See you, mate.
Catch you later. Thank you.
Bye.
See you. Bye.